they told me to prepare for disability. Here's what happened instead. I was only 21 years old. I had a baby, and I was sitting in a neurologist's office in the waiting room for almost 4 hours, not even exaggerating. And the office was running behind, but it was also because the doctor that I was waiting to see was one of the best neurologists in the Kansas City market. As far as available doctors and who you could see, she was the coveted doctor. And I was anxious to meet with her because I had been sent on after finding out that myasthenia gravis was an incorrect diagnosis. And now I was waiting to find out what's next. What does that even mean? And my mom was with me. She had driven me there. And we had my daughter, Clara, just a little baby. And at the time I was married, but my husband was at work. And it was good that I had my mom to help me because it's a lot, to sit in a waiting room for 4 hours. Have you ever done it? Probably. If you have autoimmune disease, you've probably served your time in the waiting room. But I was there and I was waiting. And looking back now, it's kind of funny what you remember. Uh, I don't remember what I wore or what I ate that day, but I remember the waiting and the waiting and wondering if I was even going to get in. And I remember wondering if someone was finally going to be able to explain to me what was happening. Because for a long time, something felt wrong. And my legs would go numb and my arms would tingle and I would get stabbing pains throughout my body that seemed to come from nowhere. And my vision also was an issue, which had led to my initial diagnosis of myasthenia gravis. That was, like I said, incorrect. But my vision would double. And most of all, I was exhausted all the time, like that autoimmune multiple sclerosis fatigue. You may know it. It's not a normal kind of tired. It's the kind of exhaustion where you wake up in the morning and you feel like you haven't slept at all. And then there was also this thing, it was called the MS hug. I mean, it's still called that. But what it is feeling like you're being hugged or squeezed, like around the rib cage, like through here and here, like just being squeezed super tight in an uncomfortable way, like that visiting family kind of hug and that, favorite aunt or uncle or grandpa or whoever, maybe your grandma, they just give you those big tight hugs. Ugh, like that, but painful, and no one's doing it. So there's no happy emotion attached to it. And I had no idea what was going on, but it is part of MS and something that's common. All I knew though was that something wasn't right, right? It just wasn't. And as I'm sitting there in the waiting room with my mom and my baby and just thinking, how much longer? Like, has something happened? Are we even going to get in? And eventually they called my name and the neurologist, obviously, in the waiting room, brought me back and she tested the normal things that they test, the little knee tapping to make sure it's going to pop out. And they watched me walk, which I thought was odd because I wasn't used to that. That wasn't something that had been really checked before, just walking heel to toe, and testing my balance. Just something simple, standing on one leg, see how long I can hold it. And after going over this general physical, and we sat down and she pulled out my MRI, which she had already seen and gone over, of course, but she got it out and started to point out on the screen in particular areas what looked to me like nothing because it's just a little white patch, not much, right? Can't be that bad. I did not understand what I was looking at. I just didn't, but she did. And then she explained something to me. she explained that multiple sclerosis can affect people in many different ways. And for me specifically, she was anxious, I could say, or concerned. Concerned might be the better term. um, because she explained to me that I was currently experiencing relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis, which means that the immune system acts up and can cause damage, but then it will calm back down. And the damage will also at times calm back down and symptoms can ebb and flow. But there are also people that get secondary progressive, tends to come later in the diagnosis. But her encouragement to me was to recognize, because of my specific lesions and the speed at which I was already progressing in really just a couple years, that I should plan for disability, physical as well as mental, because, like I've mentioned before, the lesions were in particular areas of my brain and upper spine through here that were predictive of more advanced or quicker progression. Now, I wish I could tell you exactly what happened in my mind after this conversation, but honestly, everything felt kind of blurry because I still didn't quite know what to expect. She was telling me, and you hear the words coming, but to hear what's being told to you and actually process it is two different things. Part of me felt overwhelmed and part of me felt scared. And strangely enough, there was also a part of me that felt relieved, because after all the symptoms and confusion and the unanswered questions, I finally had a diagnosis. And to me, that was encouraging because I had a name. Finally, I had a name for what was happening. And I wasn't imagining it, and I wasn't crazy. And there was actually a reason for what I had been experiencing. It's scary, though, because there was something else attached to that hope, and that was fear. A lot of fear, because I wasn't just hearing information. I was hearing a prediction. And once you hear a prediction like that, at only 21 years old, it can become very difficult to even imagine a different future. And especially when you're just holding your baby and dreaming of, but wait, is, I know I'm talking in circles because that's how it felt. Like when you're trying to build a life, it's so scary to get a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, but I imagine any autoimmune disease diagnosis is so scary, especially at such a young age. I was scared. And I remember wondering if I was going to be able to raise my daughter. I remember wondering if I was going to be able to take care of myself. And I remember wondering if one day my children were going to have to change my diapers? No. What? And I just remember wondering if one day, if there was any point. Like, it stopped at that. Is there any point in making long-term plans? Because fear has a way of just shrinking your future, and the fear of what could happen, and the fear of waking up one day and discovering the doctors had been right all along. I was scared. So I did what I was told. I followed the medical advice. I started the medications. I gave myself injections, something called Copaxone. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong for anybody. I did try it. At the time, it was considered my best medical option, and I tried it. For me, it didn't help. But I tried to be a good patient and I tried to do everything right. And yet something happened that I wasn't prepared for. because I kept getting worse and the injections hurt. If you've done Copaxone, you know what I'm talking about. It is hard to, you get the fat on the back of your arm or on your thigh, and then you have to, it's kind of tricky to do yourself because you're supposed to pinch, and then you also have to do the needle, and you're like trying to like pinch it, and it's not pleasant. It is so uncomfortable. And then once you actually accomplish it, it feels like you injected lava into your body and it burns. It hurts and then it swells. And I'm not trying to be anti-Copaxone because for some people it helps, right? And I'm not trying to advertise for them either. I'm not connected at all. But for some people it helps. For me, it just didn't. And it was just really difficult. And the side effects that I experienced were very difficult. My MS symptoms continued, and emotionally, I was falling apart because there were days I felt hopeful. I really did. I was really trying. And there were days that I just felt angry, like genuinely angry. And days I felt so discouraged and exhausted and depressed. Like, I have to admit it. Like, getting a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis is so heavy. And I was just so young and I did have hopes and dreams and I became depressed. I really did. And I think that there is a biological connection. There's a physical causation or connection with MS and depression. So I'm not trying to diminish that. There is a true connection. But just the emotional burden of it is very, very difficult. It's the kind of depression where you start wondering if your life is only going to become harder, and the kind of depression where you begin to feel like a burden before you've even become one. So I met with therapists and I met with psychiatrists and I spent years trying to stabilize emotionally while also trying to navigate what was happening physically. And honestly, I'll just say it. I mean, I'm going to say it on a YouTube video because it's true and it's real. There were times that I felt suicidal. Not because I wanted to die, but because I was terrified of the life that was waiting for me on the other side of the tunnel. I had a friend with multiple sclerosis and she was getting worse. She was doing everything she should and she was getting worse. And her father had multiple sclerosis and she had watched his journey and him doing everything he should and him getting worse. And from where I stood, it looked like everyone with this diagnosis was heading in the same direction. And I thought that maybe that was my future too. Maybe you've been there. Maybe not with multiple sclerosis, but maybe you've started a future and then it got stopped and you stared at that future with fear because now it looks so different and it scared you. I mean, maybe you've looked at your circumstances and thought, this is never going to get better. If that's you, I want you to hear something that took me years to learn. A diagnosis is information. It is not a destiny. A prognosis is an educated prediction. It is not a guarantee. And fear is a terrible fortune teller because fear loves to convince us that the worst case scenario is the inevitable, but fear doesn't know the future. And 20 years later, that's what I want to talk about because I'm almost 40 years old now. I'm still walking and I'm still living independently. I'm still raising my own children. The youngest two are 13. I'm a mother of 7 and I've written a book. Actually, if you guys are interested, you can order it on Amazon. It's called Finally Understand Multiple Sclerosis. You should check it out. There will be a link below. And I have a website. Check it out because I want to be here to support you. But with that being said, I've built a health coaching business, and while I have symptoms, and while I still have fears, and while I still have days that are hard, my life looks nothing like the future I imagined when I was sitting in that office at 21 years old. And the lessons I've learned along the way have changed everything. Join me in this journey as we learn and grow together. Your diagnosis is not your destiny. You have the ability to heal. You have the ability to keep walking. A wheelchair is not your only choice. You are probably going to have issues. You're probably going to have symptoms. You are probably going to have to deal with it. Watch my videos, check out my book, keep coming back because I want to be here for you. Share this and let's do it together because, like I said, your diagnosis is not your destiny. There is hope and there is a future for you. Please be here with me and share it. Comment below. Let me know your triumphs, your successes, and your challenges. I want to do this together. I'll see you in the next one.